guys. My name is John. I'm one of the Revo student volunteers here at Revo Church. And alongside me is Jamie. And Jamie,
Hi.
we are doing a continuation in our series.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the series and what we're doing and
Yeah.
what we're going to
So,
be doing today?
so the series we're doing is called Stories.
Yeah.
The whole goal of this series is for us to come and tell you our story of life change, if you will, how we met Jesus, what Jesus did in our life, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll be able to look and say, I connect with that volunteer, I connect with that person, and really see their story.
Yeah. So with that, we'll just get right into it, and we won't waste any time. So we're gonna get into Jamie's story.
Yeah, we're talking about my story today.
Yeah, Jamie's
Not
story
John's.
today, not mine. Jamie's.
Mine.
Jamie's.
Just so we're clear.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of you may know Jamie, maybe not as much at South Fork, but we've seen your face here at South Fork, at North. So a lot of people, hopefully you guys will watch this and really just connect with Jamie's story and hear what he's got to say. So with that being said, let's just start out with what your life looked like before Christ.
Yeah, so most people grow up in church and they hear about Jesus from a young age and live it out.
Yeah.
That's not my story. I grew up and I went to church as a little kid. We actually lived, so the church was on a hill and we were the house right below the church.
Gotcha. Now, did you go to church or did you just go one or two times?
We went to church.
Okay.
But from growing up and even as long as I can remember, it was never a priority to go to church.
Okay.
We went to church mainly because people would drive past our house. And so it would look bad if the church doors were open and you're not there. And people see you riding your bike outside when, do you know what Awanas is?
Yeah, I was never a part of it.
Approved workmen are not ashamed, I think is what it stands for. Don't fact check me.
Yeah.
And so if Awanas was going on, it's a kids program on Wednesday nights. And I was riding my bike outside, I would have my friends be like, why didn't you come to church? and so I came to church. But I didn't know Jesus. Jesus was not a priority to me. It was more, I wanted to look good. I wanted to fit in because I was homeschooled. And so that was the only interaction I had with people. And so then my family moved. We moved from that house to a house out in Rowan County. And when we moved from Davie to Rowan, we moved away from the church. We would still go to the church every now and then, but we stopped going.
Gotcha.
We would go maybe once or twice a month instead of every week. When it come to the Wednesday night Awanas as a kid, we would go, but also we wouldn't go. And so it really turned into a thing of, I started going and I was memorizing verses and doing all the right things, but for the wrong reasons. So then we moved and we were going sporadically. So then my dad got a job and we moved all the way across the county to where we were about 30 minutes away from the church.
Okay.
Which was far enough for my parents to say, we're not going to that church. And they said it under the guise of, we'll go to another church. That church never showed up. And so growing up, so from 6th grade all the way through high school, I didn't go to church. Wow. And so I started in 6th grade, also started public school in 6th grade. And at that time, I stopped going to church and was in public school. So I was still trying to be a good kid. I started out as a good kid. That did not last because my priority all throughout middle school and even high school was I wanted to be popular. I wanted people to like me because I always felt that need. I felt like I needed someone to care about me. I needed someone to love me. And so I always looked at that in my friends. And so if my friends were doing something, hey, I was going to do something. And so by 6th grade to 7th grade, I started to be a little disrespectful. I started mouthing off, also if you're listening to this, you're probably a little mouthy, let's be honest. But by 7th grade, I started to cuss. By 8th grade, every other word was the F-bomb because, that's what my friends were doing. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to be cool. By the time I hit freshman year of high school, I started to go to parties. By sophomore year of high school and junior year, I was the party guy. I was going to parties. I was hanging around with this girl and that girl and doing this thing and that thing, all bad things. And I was really just known as the guy that was just bad. I was the guy that people would look at and be like, oh, he's really cool to talk to in school, but like don't hang out with him.
Wow.
He's really like he's funny and he's high energy, but like don't hang out with him because you know he's a bad kid. And so that kind of stuck with me. And so all throughout middle school and high school, I started getting worse and worse, doing worse and worse things, to where my only priorities in life were wrestling, because I love to wrestle. I wanted to be the guy that was like, I'm gonna dominate you, and that's what I did. I wrestled, and then I was the guy that went to parties, and then I was the guy that was trying to get with every girl, and that was my identity. Was, hey, I wanna beat this person. And then my identity was, oh, I want to go drink that drink, or I want to go be with that girl. And so all through middle school and high school, it just progressively got worse and worse, to the point where by the time I was a junior, I was considered like one of the bad guys.
Man, yeah. So like, with that being said, like living that long in that life, and such a critical time too, like your teenage years are usually what forms you, right? How did you come to know Christ through that? Because it sounds like you were heading down.
Yeah, so that's actually
road.
So it's crazy. My junior year of high school was really this big pivotal moment for me. That was right around. So a couple of things happened all at once. I was starting to get really good at wrestling. Not to brag, but I was really good. And I'm out of high school now, and so I was even better than I was when I was there. But I was really good. I started having some schools. Yeah, I was MVP.
Yeah.
I had some schools looking at me. I actually had UNC Pembroke. They were talking to me about a scholarship. And so I was planning my future of like, man, I'm going to go. And I said, I'm going to be a psychiatrist, because I can ask people, how does that make you feel? And I'll make a lot of money doing it. And that was my plan. And so I was going to go to Pembroke. I had the scholarship lined up. And in the span of about a month, a couple of things happened to me. My sister tried to commit suicide. She had done that. She had attempted quite a few times, but this was the most severe, to where they didn't think she was going to make it. Wow. And all growing up, from about middle school to high school, she struggled with some mental problems. And so, you know, that really left me feeling low. And so anytime something would happen, my parents would go and they'd be with her, and they should be with her. But I always felt alone. And so that happened. And so I was feeling alone. Well, then I had a friend that he was a partier too. And he kept inviting me, like, hey, come. And every time I'd go to a party, I would drink a couple, but I'd never go like too crazy. Yeah. I was like, I want to have fun, but like, I want to remember what I did. But at that moment, that happened with my sister, and I felt alone. And so I was like, I'm going to go and just get absolutely blacked out. Wow. Like, I'm going to go crazy. And so that was right before Christmas. All of this was right before Christmas. But then the day of the party that I had decided I'm going to go and get crazy, I had a wrestling tournament. And in that tournament, a move that I had done 100 times messed up, and I ended up tearing my knee. Dang. I had to have surgery. I went from a scholarship at UNC Pembroke to now uncertainty of if I could even wrestle next season. Wow. I couldn't go to the party, and I just remember sitting at the house just angry at everything. And this is where my brother-in-law comes in, Brad. Brad started he started taking over the student ministry at the old church that I used to go to. And so Brad come up to me, and for months, Brad would come up and be like, hey, you should come to church. Okay, you should come to the student group. Like, hey, you should come. Like, we're doing this on Wednesday night. You should come. And every time I'd make up an excuse, like, Brad, I can't bend my knee. I can't go. Like, my knee can't bend. Brad, I don't want to go. I don't have gas. Oh, you're going? I got to do homework when you're leaving, and I don't have gas, so I can't get there when you're gone. And it's, Brad, I'm just not going to. He kept on for months. Brad kept being persistent, knocking down my door, to where finally I said, you know what? I'll go with you one time if you'll leave me alone. And so I went, and I remember walking into the church building, and it was the first time I'd stepped foot in church. And I remember thinking, there's something wrong here. I don't know if it's the church. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's the message being taught, but there's something wrong. So I decided to keep going. I didn't change, but I kept going. And so I become the kid, and you might know some kids that are like this, that go to church on Wednesday night. They go on Sunday, but they're not Christian.
Yeah.
That was me. It wasn't until the summer between my junior year and my senior year that we were going to summer camp.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't going to go. I had told them I'm not going to summer camp. I don't want to go. The underlying cause was I didn't have the money to go. But they come up and said, hey, somebody paid your way. They want you to come to camp. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll go to camp.
Go now. Yeah.
And so I remember getting there, and I don't remember everything that was said, but the person leading the camp, his name was Neil Hatfield. I remember that. And I just remember him talking, and the thing that stood out to me the most was he said that, hey, Jesus loves you no matter what you've done. He was like, Jesus is calling you no matter how bad you've been. No matter what sin you've done, Jesus loved you anyways, and that's why he went to the cross.
Wow.
And then at the end of him speaking, he looked and he said, if that hit home with you and you feel like you need Jesus, he told us to go to one side of the room and just start praying. And so I remember I went to that side and knelt down and started praying. And this is how you know you're sinful, but you're seeking Jesus. My first prayer had like 4 F-bombs in it. Like, Lord, I'm a... And just laid it all out there to God. And in that moment, it was like, wait a minute, there's something different. Dude, that's Jesus. And
let's go.
And that's really how I met Jesus. Was Brad just continually knocked down my door.
Yeah.
Somebody, I don't know, it might have been Brad. I don't know who it was, but somebody paid my way to camp. And then I got there, and it was like Jesus just smacked me in the face. Like, what are you doing? I'm here the whole time.
Wow.
I've been seeking you the whole time. And so that's really how I met Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Like, to go from like literally losing what you love the most, having to be at the bottom of the barrel, and realize like, man, like I can't do this. That's crazy. So like, all right, now you're saved.
Yeah.
And you're leaving summer camp. Like, how did you start to change your life? How did you start to turn around from the ways that you were living?
Yeah, so I think this is
and partying and things like that.
Yeah, I think this is a misconception a lot of times. I think a lot of people think that you're going to get saved and you're going to change. Mm-hmm. Like, you get saved and everything that you were doing wrong, you're going to stop.
Yeah, you're Mr. Perfect now. Yeah.
And here's the thing. I'm 27 now. I was 16, 17 when that happened.
Wow.
I'm still doing some of the things that I did when I was 16 years old. I'm still struggling with some of those things.
Yeah.
So, disclaimer for you, you will still struggle. But I remember I got saved and I went back home, and I had a girlfriend at the time, and I told her, I was like, hey, I just met Jesus, and this is the most important thing to me now. She got offended, but that's okay.
Yeah.
She was like, I'm supposed to be the most important thing. No, woman.
No,
Jesus
woman.
is.
Yeah. Let's go.
And so then I told her, I was like, well, hey, we're not having sex anymore because I'm supposed to be following Jesus.
Wow.
I had friends when I got back, they were like, hey, we're having a party. I'm like, is it a party about Jesus? Because if not, I'm not going. I still went to some of them. Mm-hmm. Still had sex a couple times. And so it was a process of, I would start to do things, and then for the first time in my life, I felt like, wait, I'm not supposed to do that.
Wow.
And I started to realize, hey, there's something greater. There's Jesus out there. He's greater than what I'm thinking, what I'm struggling, what I'm feeling. And in that moment, and in those moments after I would do something, whether it was a little lie or big party, I started to realize that there's something greater. And so I started to become more like Jesus. I started to seek him. I actually bought a Bible. It was a King James version. Amen.
Amen, brother.
And then I got
1611 Schofield
yes.
KJV, baby.
This thick. And I started to read it. And then I still was wrestling. I was able to wrestle, and I was going to still go to college because that's what I believed I was supposed to do. And it wasn't until my senior year of high school, I got back from the knee surgery, following Jesus. And I said, Lord, I'm still going to college though. Like, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to be the psychiatrist. I'm going to ask people, how does that make you feel? And I'm going to make a lot of money doing it. And my first tournament back, I beat the number 1 kid, the number 2 kid, and the number 5 kid in the state.
Dang.
I I told you I was pretty good.
Yeah.
The next match, after everyone's asking me, what are you going to do with your life? Oh, I'm still going to go to Pembroke. We had conversations. They're like, we can give you a half scholarship. The next match, I was wrestling a kid that was unranked. And by just dumb luck, my shoulder hit the mat and I had a total shoulder separation.
Jeez.
I had to have surgery, and it took me about 9 months to be able to fully raise my arm. And in that moment, I said, all right, Lord, you must be calling me to something. So I'm going to follow. So I ditched UNC Pembroke and said, I'm going to Bible college.
Wow.
And I'm going to be a missionary because I'm not cut out to be a pastor. And I got to Bible college, and that's when I realized that there's so many things you can do with your life outside of just going across sea. There's so many things you can do that's just seeking Jesus and seeking to glorify God. I started to learn things. We went to the same Bible college.
Went to the same Bible college.
And
I was going to mention that.
yeah,
but, you know.
You remember we had to take that exam right before, like when we got there?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was supposed to be like, oh, how much do you know about the Bible?
Right, yeah.
Do you remember what you made on that exam? It was out of 100 questions, and it was like each question was worth 1 point.
Dude, I'm going to be honest,
grade?
It was nothing to remember.
I got a 2.
You got a 2?
I got a 2.
Okay, I got like a 56 or something like that, okay?
I got a 2.
Yeah.
Because I knew nothing. I knew Jesus. And let me tell you.
That's the answer to everything.
It's not always the answer to
oh,
everything.
It's not? Okay, all right.
Though he is the answer to everything. So I started going to Bible college, and that's when I realized that, hey, God has so much more for me than just going to missions, that he's calling me to so much more. And so in that moment, I started to realize there's so much more I can do. And so that's really, it's now just an ongoing journey of me saying, okay, God, what's next?
Yeah.
Like, okay, God, I was in high school and you changed my life. I'm a senior in high school. I'm going to go and I'm going to do it my way. And you said, no, you're not. So I said, okay, God, what's next? Going to Bible college. I get to Bible college and it said, okay, God, what's next for me? And he brought me to Revo long before South Fork existed. And so I said, okay, God, I'm here, I'm serving, but what's next? And so God brought me to a camp, and I actually got to work camp ministry, the thing that changed my life. And I got to work that for like 6 years. And I remember when me and Casey, my wife, if y'all don't know her, you should know her, by the way. She's known as my wife.
You're known as her husband. Let's be honest.
It's not true. Not true. But I remember we were getting married and we were saying, okay, God, what's next for us? And so she got into school at Wake. And so we got to come back to Revo. And so in every step, it's been, okay, God, what's next for me? And so I think that's, if we're going to end off the story, my story, it's really one of saying, hey, no matter how bad you are, God still loves you.
Yeah.
I was the worst and God loved me.
Yeah.
He cared about me. I heard it said, and I think this is a powerful thing, of God loves you, but he also likes you.
Dang.
Like, that's hit home for me so many times.
Dang.
Because there's people in my life that love me, but man, they might not always like me. But God not only loves me, he likes me.
Yeah.
And he actively wants to be with me. And it's the same for you. He loves you and he wants to be with you. And so if you're like me, if your story's like mine, where it's, you've been through some stuff, I'd love to talk to you about it. I'd love to try to help you through that. You can contact me. You can call me, text me, email me.
Show up to church. Yeah.
But I love to tell them, man, there's a God that loves you. There's a God that likes you. And you're never too far gone.
Yeah. Dude, that's pretty awesome. That's thank you for sharing that. There's plenty of people out there who haven't grown up in church who can relate to that, I think. And one of the things that stuck out to me real quick was the time that you got injured the first time between the time that you got injured the second time, the different reactions there. The first time you were just so mad and so angry and upset. Your identity was a wrestler.
Yeah.
And then the second time it was like, I got hurt and I wasn't going to do what God wanted me to do. I'm going to submit. okay, God, I'm listening. And that's huge. That is huge. And just the process of justification and sanctification, right? And just moving forward in your faith. So if you guys relate, please like reach out to us.
Drop it in the chat.
Comment in the chat. Drop below, however you say it these days. And or just come up to one of us, Michael, whoever you know at church, and just ask questions, man. Like that's what we're here for. That's what we're trying to do. One of our goals is just to kind of help you open up a little bit. So if you relate, man, like it, subscribe,
all the things. Click the bell.
The bell.
I don't know what the bell is,
join
but
us.
I always hear YouTubers say click it.
Yeah,
So
click the bell.
Click the bell.
If you see the bell, click it. Don't ring it. Click it.
Only for ours, though.
Yes. So yeah, join us next week as well. We'll have another story in our series stories, and yeah, we'll check you out. We'll see y'all next time. Woo!